and environments. I am. Okay, so are we ready to go?
I'm just gonna press record and I'll move out of the way.
Mic check, 1 2 1 2. Mic check, 1 2 1 2.
Okay.
The emotional world seems to bewilder many men. Once again, we learn of another man who died by suicide. The stories never end. Man kills wife and turns gun on himself. Successful doctor completes suicide. Famous actor kills himself. The news goes on and on. The stories flood both traditional and social media networks. There are people who are choosing death rather than life. During times like these, when words feel inadequate, I sense a deep unrest in my soul. It begs the question, why would a man opt to die rather than talk about his pain? What is going on here? Surely we are missing something. Why do men hurt others and themselves?
She has decided to end the relationship. And then you go back to what I said about domination. So obviously, when someone makes that decision that I'm ending the relationship, you lose control over this person, you lose power over this person, you lose domination over this person. And these are the key defining features of what it means to be a male person.
Why men are perpetrators of violence? Why men are perpetrators of all the terrible things, atrocities that are happening? It's one thing. He has a different power. The man has lost his power.
You must have control, you must have power, you must have domination. So the other is no longer willing to be controlled. It is no longer willing to be under your domination. So obviously, how do I restore the control and the power and the domination that I had over the other? And often, when you check the history of there will be all kinds of threats that one may have made against the other. But now the other, and the other can also see that there is no way I can bring them back under the system of them being sort of controlled. So that is my first analysis. There's something also very dehumanizing about being a male person. And you look at some of these cases and how the killing sort of happened. We are left wondering about the psyche and the psychology of the perpetrator. But we know many of these perpetrators, we cannot say all of them, I would say 90 to 80% of them, that there was something pathological, that the person was incapacitated at that moment of committing this crime. We cannot, okay? Because many of them, in fact, are highly functioning individuals. So when you link it with the comment that I made about being dehumanized, because if you are human, then I will have this sense of humanity, to say, okay, maybe the other is no longer interested in me, and maybe they have their own reasons, and then let them go, okay? But because my humanity is no longer in existence, may not make sense, but I hope it makes sense, is that I cannot even be in the shoes of the other, put myself in the world of the other, because everything revolves around me and around me and around me and around me, but not in a narcissistic sort of sense.
Our brain is designed to help us survive. Also, there are processes in our bodies that don't require our permission to survive. Our cardiovascular and respiratory systems act without asking for permission. Our body wants to survive. If every bit of us wants to survive, surely there must be something amiss when a man gets to a point where he thinks, you know what, death is better than this. When a man starts thinking that nobody cares or no one will understand his pain, then we have entered into dangerous territory. Why not use your words? Why not tell someone? Many men need help.
In the first place, that
I
you're
can
going,
flow, but
yeah.
this is hard because it begins and starts with all of that. For me to pin down a book titled "Confessions of a Broken Man," I'm literally, I'm already announcing that I'm a broken man.
Very risky.
I think to Leroy's point, he talked about the way we a person is developed. You also mentioned signs. I think that signs are there. Maybe we struggle to interpret the signs. Perhaps when we look at the lyrics in the music, perhaps when you look at the violence in the community, perhaps when we look at what happens on a Friday night,
the rage.
People are drinking, perhaps the rage, perhaps when you look at those, then we might be we might want to pause a little bit and to interpret that, right? And so it is in also our upbringing, in that the emotional story of a man. We're supposed to learn emotions when we are from our mother's wombs. In the first few weeks, you're supposed to learn emotions, and then family teaches you how to articulate it, right? Because it's first in the body. A baby cries, and then as they grow older, we want to say, oh, are you crying? Do you want this? Learn to speak, learn to say this. And so we don't have that example with our family structures that are not intact, where people don't get to move from I feel the pain in my body to learn how to articulate it. And then a boy is probably hugged for the last time when he's probably about 10 or 11, and the only emotions you can sort of express is probably anger, and probably when it comes to sex. And those are the kind of two emotions you have at your arsenal. And now, as Leroy says, you live in a world and there's a lot demanded on you. Then you need a range of emotions, but you are not able to tap into that. Please help men sitting at river, enemy come to border, men hit enemy with jawbone, men kill enemy, men strong, men found fire, men bend fire, men hunt animal, woman make food, men fight war, men return from war, woman not home, woman in factory, woman make money, woman buy house, woman buy iron horse, woman stands on head of men, men angry, men crying in cave, men don't know how to behave, men strong, men beat. This question has lingered long in my mind. It keeps me up at night. It infiltrates my thoughts and my days. The more I think about it, the more I realize that I too have a story.
22 minutes after 6, happy Tuesday and welcome. We're hanging out with Thabang Tlaka, clinical psychologist and author of a brand new book called Focus and Flourish. Thabang holds a master's degree in clinical psychology from the University of Pretoria. Father of 2 daughters, a communicator and a Mandela Rhodes Scholar. He's an author of the author of Taxi Philosopher, Corrupting Virgins and Selfie of the Soul. Together with his wife, another overachiever, Dr. Zanele Tlaka, have established the creative hub Crazy Poetic Ministries. He's a father, an author, poet, playwright, and special event speaker. He was a Brightest Young Mind delegate in 2009 and a Mandela Rhodes Scholar in 2008.
Before I trained as a clinical psychologist, before I began speaking to groups of people, before I was an author, husband, and father, before I wore these different hats that represent an image of a well-adjusted man in his midlife, I was a teenager struggling with bouts of depression. In the city of Polokwane, I was one of those teens who did fairly okay in high school. Described as disciplined and generally liked by teachers and peers. If you ask most people who knew me as a teenager, they would describe me as doing well, happy, fine, but was I really fine? Although I seemed okay, I struggled a lot with suicidal ideations. I used to want to die. I would imagine being hit by a speeding car and dying. I would toy with the idea of jumping in front of a moving truck. I thought about this a lot. What kept me from executing my plan was a thought. What if the truck or bus hit me and I became seriously injured and was not able to play sports? What kind of life would I lead if I could not run and play sports? The thought kept me alive. I guess my vanity saved me. I did not know it then, but my thought life was more active than I understood. Though I had family members who loved and cared for me, my friends in sports, I was young and did not know exactly or understand how my mind worked. What also kept me alive was my stumbling upon words. Whenever my emotions had me in a chokehold or my mind was running ridiculous and illogical marathons, I put thoughts on paper. Somehow, I gravitated towards writing and reflecting. There was something about words and writing my thoughts and emotions that helped me process stuff. There was something potent and therapeutic about it. I wrote about many of the things that bothered me. In fact, I think I have a poem for every pivotal stage of my life. If it bothered me, I wrote about it. If it made me feel deeply or arrested my mind, I wrote about it. When it comes to writing, I would be livid or in a mood at the beginning of writing a thought, poem or essay, but noticed that I had come down by the time I completed my writing. Expressing myself through writing poetry and speaking about what I wrote gave me perspective, honed my thinking processes, and helped me understand myself and others a little more. It is as if words pulled me into a strange world of reflection and understanding. The more I wrote and expressed myself, the more thoughtful, confident, and centered I felt. I became a man full and fascinated by words. From being a teenager who struggled with bouts of depression to being a trained and practicing clinical psychologist, I've learned a fair bit about the process of becoming a well-adjusted human being. I have had time to also develop my writing and speaking abilities. It has been such a journey. Since the use of words has been such a powerful tool for my life, I thought to write a love letter to my brothers across the globe. Through recording poetry, I thought I could address a few things that are pertinent to our development as men. Cry and so men don't have a range of emotion. Like we are all that, we can be great and aggressive, we can be beasts and all that, but we struggle to also tap into when things are not going okay. Like guys can't be like, I had a bad day, or like hey, I'm worried about tomorrow, or I'm worried about money, or a guy can't talk like that. You're supposed to just take it in. You know, if you're going through something tough, you must act like, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, or one of the reasons why guys actually, when you feel defeated, you feel like, let me just die, because you feel so incompetent. So that's what we must fix. So those are the things I want to discuss, and I thought poetry would be a nice way to I can do that, because it's a little bit different, and do a little documentary on it, and and then do radio talk, and then help guys, and but I want to change the name. It's called Suicidal, but I can make you listen to all these, or I'll send them to you, and then it's about suicide. So it's emotional machine, suicide. No, I need a better name.
Instead of suicide.
It's suicidal.
Or suicide.
Like what would get a man to do that? So maybe it's us. We set up this world where we say like you're something if you have stuff, but when you don't have stuff, then we say you're a nobody. We don't care about your feelings, so long as you're secure in the bag, so long as you're entertaining us. Then I go into things like, but what did you, after you hung yourself, for example, like who do you think will find you and what happens to them? You know what I mean? And then I sort of tie it up. It's like a question, you know, a lament. I'm not. The other ones I'll probably do them with some beats. One probably a cappella. But this one with suicide, I actually wanted to talk to Zenani. But to do more like a mood. I don't like a lament, like a sad mood sort of thing. Then it's online, is emotional machine, is please help man, is suicidal, then something like that. A human being is a meaning-making creature. We have experiences and tell ourselves stories about those experiences. We tell inspirational and grand narratives about who and what we are. We weave fairy tales and shameful stories about our true nature. In our narratives, we cast ourselves as angels or demons, victors and victims. We describe ourselves as people who can or people who can't, the golden child or the black sheep of the family. We tell ourselves all sorts of things, but words are powerful. The words we use impact the story that becomes our lives, and all our stories have a beginning, a middle, and an ending. Men tell themselves and are also told by society who they are or who they are not.
As I close, men, take back your power. But let's reverse. Number one, what must we take back as men? Number one is what? What did you say? The first one, let's go back to the original intent, the original reason why we exist as men. That is our purpose. We all stands for opportunities. Let's go for every opportunity to learn. Kuna business workshop, kuna session efana na hotels. Even if they say 3, they say 4, this is a success. Yes. Because from here we are going to spread the message, we are going to go very far. Yes. We are going, so that is all opportunities. Then what else? Where? Let's work. Let's work. But also I'm telling you, our first was 7 they are going to frustrate us. I'm telling you that they are going to work, they are going to earn better than us, they are going to start to serve. You'll feel like Lord, you'll never feel like a child. Because there are some women who will make you to feel so terrible. Because of seven, he also know to make some aside pay. Do you understand? So if I'm a 7 now we are so we are going, not for the year, not for the year. It's bad. Do you understand? You get child. You won't perform sexually because of all this one. Everything you have to know 7 just goes down. Everything goes down. But 7 is a ball. It's not commissar. Let's not try to be nice. Mama said it, Panda, Abosa, Panda, Samanaza, do anything. You know, see what's in our debate. And that's why we found our purpose in working. You know, that's why we found our purpose in working. Who is that's what? Excellence. In our working, then what must we do? We put an element of excellence into it. We put our best. You're a life coach. Do the best way. So that whatever that you will have sat down with, put on, but yes, this is the best.
I think, you know, if you could talk about a lot of the smaller hurts, let's talk about, you know, following that. essentially it comes down to one big thing, and that is that I don't know that I've got what it takes, because no one's really answered that question for me. So it's a question I walk around with the whole time, and when I'm looking at other people to answer that question, I get hurt. If my identity is not settled, it becomes an identity issue for me. So where does my identity lie? Does my identity lie with being a husband, with my wife, in a relationship, at work? I mean, right now, if my identity is lying in any of those things, I mean, we are living in crazy times. I mean, what happens to that? That source that gets pulled out, it's like suddenly, I might lose my job. Suddenly my income is affected. And if that's my identity, then it shakes. Often I've had conversations with men and they are unemployed, and the wife is working, and for them they just feel like they're not a man because they don't bringing back they're not bringing a salary home, and so for them the identity was linked to I'm not the wife.
Worry not, my little friend. Worry not. We didn't graduate from evil college to be outdone by these human vermin, these worms. So disgusting. I mean, they don't even know who they are. They spend their entire lives finding themselves, but end up losing themselves. I mean, they don't even know who they are. But seeing that we deceived ourselves upon this earthly theater, we shall introduce deception. Let's create conditions to confuse those that are yet to receive the revelation. We will indulge them in all sorts of things and drown them in corrupted spirits. We will beat them, bruise them, break them, and then shame them. We will confuse them, control them, and then convince them of their uselessness. We will torture them, torment them, and then accuse them of their treacherous ways. But before the cook...
One of the things we must think about is to not throw out the baby with the bathwater. There's some aspects that are wonderful about being masculine, and we should perhaps tease those out. But what is good about it and what is bad about it? Because it's like a knife. You know, with a knife you can use it to cook a wonderful meal, but you can also use it to butcher people. So I think we need to then think about that, how we communicate about what that idea is, and where men are in positions of power and where they can make a difference, that they should. That if there are people around you, they shouldn't be, if there are women around you, that they should feel safe. They shouldn't feel as if they need to protect themselves or because you're going to harm them. And so those things we need to, I think, tease them out a bit.
Do you believe that
guys help guys and move away from this, which I feel is a witchcraft, calling men dogs and trash and all those things.
Yeah.
Like one guy, he was on radio, they said, why don't you join the march for men are trash? He says, I've got a son. How do I leave the house saying men are trash and I expect him to be? So we want to say, there are guys okay doing, abusing women, doing trashy things, but I think men should not live their lives thinking like I'm on my own. If I'm going through stuff, I can't tell anybody, which is what a lot of guys believe. They feel like, it's just me in the world. So I have to be a beast to something, but then the world will oppress you. So those are the things I'm sort of addressing.
We have constructed a world that breeds much loneliness, pretense, and inauthenticity. This is a world of personas, facades, and masks. Society sets people up for emotional distress. Everyone seems to be chasing the next thing, and we don't pause long enough to see and hear people. We are constantly looking, but we do not see. We are constantly hearing, but do not understand. This is fertile ground for extremes. Because we do not hear, more and more people feel the need to do something extreme to grab our attention by any means necessary. Death and violence is loud enough. Suicide is loud enough. This construction has to be destructed.
It's the same old, same old. When they pass by, they are conniving, callies ask, did you hear about the man who lost his mind, who lost his mind, who lost his mind? Be that as it may, the man had an impressive resume. In the ways of the world, he walked through places like Wall Street, an intellectual giant who could never concede defeat. Business is not for the sensitive. I need those incentives. He had a burning desire to establish an empire. The summary of all his efforts was listed on the JSE. His CEO stature never allowed him to LOL with his family. He's a board member. The purse allowed him to order on ships and sail across international borders, investing in new technologies. A highly credentialed man, yet an imbecile, running after a buck that keeps hopping around, yet unaware of the silent noise in his heart. Even mere bucks know how to follow the light. He was a board member, bored at home with his wife and with his life. The problem of pleasure and pain screams so loudly. Everybody wants to be him, but he hates his life. He's alone in his mind, bored. Did you hear about the girl, the boy, the woman, and man who lost their minds, who lost their minds, who lost their minds? We stand at crossroads where beauty and the beast and juxtaposed.
Which is what we do, you know. And then there are these, you go on social media, you hear these guys saying stuff like, you know, you need to be this masculine person, and you must ignore her for a few days, she'll come in line. You know, like this advice like that. And if she sees you crying, you would have lost her, and so guys buy into stuff like that. So I'm like, nah. So we need to fix, because then if you're abused, you think that's what you must do. Like if you're like an abused kind of person, you think ignoring your partner will actually make you want you more. Like if it's like then the fact that somebody can't see that's like an abused somebody with an abused mindset. How do you, it's like imagine a parent saying, yeah, I'm gonna ignore this child, and then they'll realize how much they need me. That's mixed. So and that's what a lot of guys have been told. Ignore her, you know, just if she texts you, don't respond now, you know, because if you respond now, you're like a beta male. You need to be alpha.
Oh my gosh, this world we live in.
Yeah, but we must fix it. What can we do? So I think that's where we are. We need to. I was talking to Gamu, saying that even like with things like corruption, and nobody's coming from anywhere to fix. Like you have to. We are the ones who's gonna fix it.
Yeah. People just tend to go with the flow and say this is the state of the world, and
but we have to fix it.
You know.
So there's
we have to fix it.
Yeah, so that's what I'm about. I wanna fix. I wanna work with men. I wanna work with families. You know. I wanna help. Do my part. I do it by fixing myself first.
That's important.
Start with the guy in the mirror.
Start at home.
But that's what I'm about. I'm not about changing. I'm gonna change me. I work on me. Then the world will learn if the if the world wants to learn. The way a man handles his emotions will either hurt him or help him. There are many men doing amazing work in society. They have been everywhere in the world,
but they have never really understood their emotions or how to talk about them. These men appear to be wonderful until you take a closer look at their emotional and relational worlds. The relationships we have say a lot about who we are.
Finding your father, you touch some forgiveness. What is it like if you're going to talk to men and they hear this and you encourage them to, I don't know, to fix, to go find their children? How do men respond to your message?
Thabang, men are very aloof, men are very closed, and men are suffering because of that. Also, the other side is pride. That who's Thabang? Why must I listen to him? You know, that's why I had a big conference. I think you were part of the conference where great guys came up and talk about their pain. So men don't want to talk about their pain. They want to keep it. They want to go into a man cave and say, no, I'll be fine. And that's why you'll see all these illnesses that men are getting, suddenly diabetes, high blood, heart attacks, is because they are bottling up. My thing is that men needs to be opened up and said, you know, I've got a problem. I need to consult. And you know, they don't want to consult psychologists and all those things. Is that you have to talk to someone. Others are coming from very troubled backgrounds, and they are taking their troubled backgrounds into their marriages.
Violence, it usually leads to a conversation about men, and I think it should invariably lead to a conversation about men. And my feeling on that is very strong, in that I really believe that society needs to look at how we're raising our boys. I think we have shifted so much focus to helping the girl child. We've shifted a lot of focus because yes, they have been actually quite disadvantaged, but in doing that, we must also not forget the boy child, because you can uplift the girl child all you want, but if you're not helping the boy child as well, then we still don't really get to the point that we need to as a society, where there's a lot of a coherent society. So I think that we need to really invest in boys, what they get exposed to, the thoughts, patterns that are perpetuated around them, because especially when they are younger, they are very impressionable. And so if all they see is that men abuse women, men don't really regard women as anything more than, you know, something to be looked down upon, someone to be looked down upon, then we're not really going to win the battle when those boys are now men.
It's been proven that pain attracts pain, love attracts love. You see, most of us are getting married to the same person, and then suddenly both of you are sitting, you don't know how to solve problems, because we don't want to learn and to say, no man, I've got a problem, I need to open up. So my plea to men is that let's talk, let's have a group of 4 men, you know, be friends and chat. Thabang, how are you today? Are you well? How's work? How's the kids? How's the family? So that we can start opening up and talk to one another.
To help the boys who have been, I guess, the collateral damage of these victimized women, to actually process the anger that they have, because a lot of them are angry about what they've seen their mothers endure, and growing up they can either really be on the other end where they really do their best to protect women, or they can be caught up in a cycle of perpetuating what they saw their fathers doing. And so I think there's a lot of work to do there with the boy child. And then I think that in itself filters to even more issues like the concept of marriage, how marriages play out. If we have a healthier society, healthier thought patterns, men understand their role in marriage, women understand their role in marriage, then I think even things like the high divorce rate that we are seeing can actually come down. So that's what I really believe.
I cannot underestimate how learning to use my words has helped me greatly. As a teenager, I found something precious: writing, performing, and sharing poetry. What began as a hobby would impact the direction of my life greatly.
Money, showers, your efforts, your dreams.
Upbringing, Thabang. You are a tiger. Men don't cry, boys don't cry, and everything. And also, you know, men are afraid that if I tell you my weakness, then I'm finished. Because if I'm a CEO of a big company and I show that how powerful am I, but Thabang knows that, hey, the weak point of that guy is 1, 2, and 3. And other men also, you know, when I if they come and consult me about certain things, I also picked up that their pain becomes their enemy, because I'm sharing with Thabang that I'm having a problem with my wife in bed. So Thabang is taking all my challenges and is turning it around to his benefit. And that's why Thabang will become a hero in the eyes of my wife, using my weaknesses. I think this is where men are scared to chat to one another, because we always said women gossip, but I promise you men gossip more than women.
The year was 2004. I met a young lady at a poetry concert in Hatfield, Pretoria. This is before it undertook a major facelift. Little did I know that on that poetry-filled night, I had met my future wife. Our love for words and poetry created many opportunities for meaningful conversation. We talked about God, life, men, women, music, medicine, psychology, books, authors. We talked and talked and talked.
It's for all the couples and women. We thank you for the opportunity, and we just pray that you enjoy the poem and we hope that you're blessed.
Of 7 colors flows from the hands of a pampered heart.
I can't taste the love anymore. I need to attend to our love a little more.
I can't savor lovely flavors anymore. I need to spice up our love a little more.
7 colors, 7 days of love in a week. Let's get schooled in love. Let's keep on learning for the passion to keep burning.
I thought I had found words, but the words led me to God, who led me to a girl who eventually became my wife. Find God, His words, and everything else follows. Upon reflection, I realized that it is how we talk about our inner worlds that shapes our outer worlds. A man cannot possess on the outside what he is not on the inside. A man who is only in touch with his masculine side will not understand his feminine side and will not know how to relate to a lover or himself.
Security, call security. I break hearts, I build homes.
So I wrote this poem after last watching the whole Oscar Tlaka thing. So then the poem came from it. My lady, without you, tell the truth, the whole truth, and not about the truth then. My accusers tell the truth, and they say that I believe in love. My love is more than fact, it is irrefutable truth, and no, I have not conducted an empirical study in order to assess the specifications and the dimensions of the loving. No, I have not studied variables and representative samples of love, but just my heart and test whether what I say is good or bad, or how I I want to be a man of significance. I want independence to play the holy game. I want man and woman to chant my name. I remember the shameful day. I honestly tried to run away from love, but I charged at me like a raging beast and stampede at all my efforts and fickle protest with my newspaper hands. I tried to smother the fire of love, melt of my soul, all my nose, and I'm crazy in love. Moving your power locked in a tiny tin can, the incredible heart locked in a toy car, the ocean contained in a bottle, soul is love in the heart of man. Lady, if I'm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and not about the truth, but I think just tell the truth, and they say that I believe in love. My love is not one of the ways that is deep within. You may say that it cannot be. Love proposed to me with a cross on careful breed. You don't have to cross-examine me, there's nothing you can prove to me that I put myself through. I tried. I honestly tried to run away from love, but I poured from the sky and tormented me like torrential rains are carried in the current of powerful love. Love pursued me like a pack of vicious wolves. I was like a sheep on the bar, like a pack is alive. Brand, until I got tired of running out of plan, so I stopped in my feet, ready to accept defeat. Hostile I turned and I said to her, keep pursuing me. Can you not see that I'm dirty and ugly? I mean I'm poor, I'm a veteran of the source, I'm covered in filth. What do you want with dirty? Love is the hours, and love is passion that flows in hearts like volcanic lava with 1,000 embraces that melted my senses.
As men, we are socialized to master the world, but know little about expressing our deepest desires. Because we confuse vulnerability with weakness, we stop ourselves from asking for help.
In the past years, working with men and boys is to create boys or to create men who would say, I respect you. Is to create men who would say, and not feel ashamed of that I am at my weakest end. Men would say that it's heavy, I am vulnerable. At a practical level, men would say that, look, I think I'm not coping. We want to create that society. And the beauty about it is that it means we want to create a society where men would grow up caring for themselves, and inevitably they would care about those that they profess to love.
It's time for the spotlight now. We are hanging out today with author, playwright, and clinical psychologist Thabang Tlaka. Thabang Tlaka, welcome to the bridge.
Good morning. How are you?
We're good. We're good. Let's kick off with the conversation we're having off air, because I mean, it's very interesting. Let's just put that to bed before we get into what it is that you're about.
Yes.
The sex talk around men, right? You and Thabang were seeming to be progressive on it.
Yeah.
What were you guys
We were
about?
basically talking about how a lot of times men become so defensive when it comes to having this discussion, and how they always know what works, in inverted commas.
Summoned by greater and lesser pleasures, a man decides daily between dirt and treasure. Words are powerful. Words can save a life. As a young intern, I once met a man going through a dark night of the soul. In our initial session, this man was visibly angry, then walked around the office and at times would aggressively hit the armrest of the chair. He breathed loudly and mouthed expletives. This man was very angry and wished that he had died. He felt bad for doing a bad job at killing himself. When he did all this, I sat in the chair and simply observed him. Something told me that I just needed to be a witness to his anger and not disrupt him. After he vented and tested me, he sat down and we began to unpack his pain.
But here with the examples that I'm giving, I'm talking about like physical like no violence. Violence that we are all able to see and sort of like witness. But what is not being said when people talk about like violence, more often you're thinking about the physical, where a person is bleeding, a person has been stabbed, a person has been sort of like killed. We're not saying much about the symbolic like violence, the violence that is invincible. Okay, and let me give you a classic like example. Given our class differences in this country, so driving around like Pretoria, so driving around Johannesburg, you arrive at a traffic intersection. Okay, what do you see when you arrive there? You see people begging. They have like placards, written all kinds of like messages, and we have seen many of them. Some now go far as even like I guess kneeling down and sort of like praying, dancing, doing all kinds of little things. And more often, I'm of the view to say there's a symbolic violence that is taking place in that interaction. In fact, many of us can't wait for the traffic lights to go green, because there's like a sense of shame. There's like a sense of realizing that I'm so privileged. And in fact, many of us, after you have driven off, quickly want to erase that embarrassing sort of like moment of realizing, I guess, even your power and your privilege. And for the other, there's a lot of like envy, you know, and especially even when it's like raining. So again, it's how we are conceptualizing. But the same person would be living in this like shack and everything, and it's raining, and obviously even in your gated like community house, you can see that today is raining heavily. But if you're to think about the person who's staying in a shack, it must be extremely worse. Is that not violent, like to that like person to be living under those like circumstances? But the same person is still expected to be human. Is still expected to be human and have the conscience that you have. That I cannot kill you over a cell phone. Why did they have to kill this like person? They should have just taken the cell phone and ran away. Because where you're sitting, humanly that does not like make sense. But I'm of the view to say, my humanity is gone a long time ago. I'm physically sort of like alive, but I'm emotionally sort of like not dead. And Fanon talks about that. The non-living beings, that these are humans that are dead, and obviously they become like quite like not dangerous.
All he knew was that he had been angry because someone had betrayed him. To him, as for many men, loyalty was important. He had lost his business, was experiencing difficulties in his marriage, and his health had been deteriorating. He was angry. What he did not realize is that he had been depressed for a very long time. He had many issues, so we had to slow down the conversation. We had to start with his history. I asked him to think of all the things that bothered him and to write them down. He wrote at least 3 pages of what he had experienced in his life. The pivotal moments of pain served to help him in the end. We talked about his experiences. We talked about his current challenges, how he had been raised, and the various traumatic experiences that he had survived. The interesting thing about our time together was that for the first time in his life, his story made sense. He had never taken the time to think about and write down all the important experiences that had shaped his life. He suffered emotional pain and had never thought of the vows he had made to himself when growing up.
For the first time, he understood that the anger that he was displaying on the surface was actually a demonstration of the deep pain and hurt he had been experiencing. He did not know that what he was actually struggling with was actually a severe depression that had shaped his personality.
Cry, and she has a sense that this guy has been through stuff. And so what can we say to them, men who've been particularly sexually abused but can't or struggle to actually even accept that for themselves, and because they have experienced that and they struggle to just be in the world, what could we say to them?
I think it's going to be important to assure them that it is not your fault that you have been sexually violated. It is the fault of someone, the person who perpetrated this. I mean, look at the Roman Catholic stories that are going around, the prisons you mentioned. I mean, during war, one of the weapons that is used is rape, and rape both men and women. So I think the starting point for me is an assurance that it is not your fault, but also to say that it's okay to seek help. Because unfortunately, and this has been proven to be correct, that those that have been violated, they end up violating others. I mean, there are instances where I've worked with Patrick Shai, who I hope that you'll have an opportunity to interview, where in the Johannesburg prison, where, I mean, one young man told me that, look, I've been molested sexually here, and possibilities are that I'll go out and seek revenge so that I reappropriate my manhood, because here I've been made a struthan. They say I've been made kimedizo. I've been reduced to nothingness, because that is why we even fear to be gays and lesbians, because then there are terms like I've been reduced to nothingness, because when you are a woman you are considered to be nothing, because then you can be slept with whether willing or unwilling. So and this young man was saying to me that possibilities are that I would go out there, want to reclaim, reappropriate what it means to be a man, and I will do that not to other men, but I will do that to women. That, look, I'm still virile sexually. I'm still a man that went into that prison who was emasculated. I'm now out. I want to reclaim my manhood.
Like where I'm not even counted in that love. I just love them for them. And that's a higher love. That's like when you get to it's like another guy, I said to him, whether you fish wapi, you fish mpaka, we fish uding, nah, I've decided to love you. So it's not dependent on what you do.
Even if you go against
so my love for you is regardless, just like the way a parent loves a child. Yeah, it's regardless whether you don't make it in the world, you'll always be my child. Whether you are crippled or not, you are my gift. Whether you are this or that, I love. So that's like high grade love. If somebody can love you like that,
is to help him to go to his next level. He became my responsibility. And I decided, as a young man, I was 21, and said, either I can hate this man and walk away. But I said to myself, what will that bring, to me if I hate and reject this guy? So immediately it's like, God said, no man, you have to forgive him. Because I realized that he kept me prison for most of my years. So actually seeing him was actually me coming out of prison and said, now I can live my life. I can close that chapter. I know where he is, I know who he is, and I'm fine. And I'm fine who I am. Because I always tell, when I do my motivational talks to kids that you are not your father and your father is not you. Find out who are you actually.
And then, so listen to that. But what does then a father give you? Like if somebody grows up with a good role model, what does a father do for a person?
A father gives that kind of protection, the love, the guidance. I see with my kids now, is I need to ask my dad for this, I need to go with my dad to this. And sometimes as fatherless kids, when we get into marriages, we want to overcompensate for what we never had, which is a big mistake. So I'm trying to be me in my marriage and being the father that I need to be for my kids, because I never had a mother or a role model. And we make mistakes. Let me tell you, we make mistakes because we are all human beings. And this thing of there's bad men and good men, I don't believe in that. You choose what you want to become, Thabang.
If somebody came to you and said, "But what is a good man?" You want to see boys becoming good men. What is that? Because there aren't a lot of people talking about that picture. So what's a good man?
I think a good man is the same as when you talk about masculinity. You've got 5 guys in the room, you're going to have 6 different opinions about that. So it's often something that we look at. So for us, a good man will be faithful, available, and teachable. I think that's the clearest definition. It is someone that's going to be faithful in what he does, understand that there's way bigger things in this universe than just ourselves. We need to get it out of our own spaces. And for me personally, it believes that I'm a son. I'm a son of the Most High God. I mean, that for me, and that just helped me with my identity. So that part, the available part, is that I cannot live this life for myself. And I have responsibility. I wasn't placed on this planet to be self-absorbing and selfish and sort of me. I was placed with a vision and a mission and a purpose. And then teachable is I have to be open to input in my life. I'm not built as an island. I'm not wired for being isolated. I'm wired for growth and for involving people in my life, and I need to do that. That's ultimately where I grow, and I need the tools to do that. I need a way. I need a roadmap, and for me, that's the value system. We cannot change behavior if we don't change the heart. You can't change this from the outside. I can't say, well, I need your behavior to change. Here's a value system, and now we're hoping that your heart will change. I mean, the chances are very, very small. But if I change your heart and I give you a value system, then your behavior will change. And so I think for us it comes down to that. And it's the vulnerability that comes in that teachable space again, that I don't know it all. I'm not going to walk out there pretending that I've got it all figured out. That I understand that I need people in my life to help me answer the questions that I'm struggling with. And that I'm walking this road in community. I'm building community. I'm not building an inheritance or building a career. Essentially my first focus is building community. And if we can change that mindset, if I can live out there with a value system, and I'm vulnerable, and I'm teachable, and I've got the right focus because my heart's been changed, and I want different things than just for me. I think of that picture of what our country could be like, and it's like wow, can you? I mean, just imagine when we do that. And so for us, it'll be a good man.
Explain that a bit more.
If you want to be a bad father, it's a choice. If you want to be a good father, it's a choice. And if you are exposed to great role models, because I decided that I'm going to look for a role model as a child. I'm going to mirror this uncle or this man. I had role models in the banking world, I had role models in the soccer world, in church. So I looked for that specific person, and I mirror that person without that person even knowing that I'm mirroring as a leader, because my greatest mentor and coach was a former owner of Bloemfontein Celtics and Tatemolemel. So we became so close that actually I thought that he was my father.
Avoid arrogance in winter's cold and summer's heat. The enemy seeks to witness our defeat. So learn, yes sir, learn to run from Jezebel's fire.
Yeah, is that the...
I always focus on...
Wisdom speaks volumes. Truth is powerful, even when whispered to some...
Do you know what's the guy after that?
No, let's figure it out.
Learn, yes sir, learn to stand for truth and fire.
There.
After that, okay. Then what's another?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Alright.
I've come to understand that many men don't understand their emotions. We are taught to kill a bear, but know little about hugging a child. We know a lot about hunting a buck, but know little about pursuing a tender heart. We know a lot about cutting out our fathers, but know little about asking for forgiveness. We struggle with our emotions and words. We build our lives on material things and ignore the essential things: family, friends, and good health. We thought we were building a paradise, but we have created a hell that people want to escape by suicide. The time is now for healing, mourning, articulating our pain. We need to use our words to construct new, happier narratives. Using our words will help us write a more balanced, wholesome, livable world. We need not underestimate the power of our words, the ability to create and destroy with our tongues. We need to use our words to speak life.
In silence, wisdom speaks volumes. Truth is powerful even when whispered. To succeed, know the difference between good and right. Yes is yes and no is no. Speak no more than you know. Lips of kings are trained to create worlds. Commence with the end in mind as everything unfolds. A true vision will not grant you peace. It will target your heart until you master the art of growing from strength to strength, even in fire.